Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and even though we're a little past Halloween, heading into the dreaded shopping hell that is Christmas, it's time to have a look at another horror book. Now, does time have any meaning if you're the undead? Does time have any meaning if you are the Lord of the Undead? Well, let's find out. To the world of Dracula and Rich Davis and his new project, Reign of Dracula. Rich, how's it going, man?
Man, it's doing fantastic, except for the fact that I was caught in traffic for about 30 minutes and I was terrified I was going to miss your podcast.
As if I would turn down a chance to speak to you about one
So
of my
you're a wise man keeping me on like that.
Yeah, what can I say? So as you know, or may not know, I live in a town called Redcar, which is not far from Whitby, which is where Dracula made his landing in good old UK.
Oh yeah.
So me and Dracula, we have some tales to tell. What is it for you, do you think, that makes Dracula so endearing a character?
Yeah, from my childhood, I've had a connection with this figure, this character. On Friday nights, I used to sneak up. I'm sneaking. My dad knew I was awake. But I'd go into the living room and, they had this big, those big screen TVs that were like the big boxes,
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, they were awesome. And there was a station out of Nashville, Tennessee. That's where I'm from. And it was like this
Go Titans.
yeah, kind of Elvira ripoff. Yeah, Titans, absolutely. And they would show these old Hammer films, and I loved them. Christopher Lee used to terrify me as Dracula, and the character really never left me because when I would read horror stories, I would find elements of Dracula in them, and I'd see movies that weren't even vampire related, but you would see these very similar themes and connections and relationships, that really were drawn from Stoker's story. So I think vampires in general have the ability to connect with us across generations, across cultural lines. And Dracula is kind of the manifestation of all that. It all comes together. When Stoker was writing the story, it was all about the fear of the other. And we still have that fear today. People who are, it's primal. Anthropologists have done studies, goes back, since the birth of humanity, about, we're taught to fear people who aren't like us because they're threats to our resources, they're threats to our food supply. So I think just somewhere on a base primal level, Dracula just connects. I mean, Dracula is the most reproduced character in all of fiction.
What, more than Batman? Oh my God! Somebody tell DC
Batman,
quick.
Yeah, I mean, Dracula can be kind of a Batman.
Figuratively.
See what I did there?
I did, yes, I did that. Yeah, clever. So when we think about Dracula and we think about vampires, the myth of the vampire has gone through changes so often. I love the Hammer horrors like you do. I love the kind of the seduction of the vampires use. And then, of course, you fast forward a few years and you've got Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and the things change, take a twist again. Then you've got to say Twilight, haven't you? There are no vampires in Twilight. I'm telling you now, they're not vampires. The fairies.
No, they're disco balls.
Yeah,
they're disco balls.
Man,
disco balls shine in the light. Vampires turn to dust.
So yeah. All it needs is a 70s soundtrack, and I'd be paying more attention to that, right?
Yeah, a little Staying Alive.
Yeah, pretty much. Staying undead.
That's even better. I like that. I'm gonna steal that.
Feel free. Just goes down in these vampire balls. Oh my God, what have we devolved into?
We just went there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. The whole idea of vampires, I get what you're saying, that like we're supposed to fear the different. But vampires, they're like not even us. They're undead. I mean,
Hmm.
Bram Stoker's Dracula movie, which is probably like a quintessential movie for every Dracula fan.
Hmm.
I
I
mean,
adore the '92 film. That's
yeah,
my favorite take on my favorite direct take on
mm,
Stoker's Dracula. There have been some other spins on Dracula that aren't necessarily beat by beat
mm,
faithful. And there were some changes in the '92 film, of course, little things that are different. But because a lot of things you had to flesh out because Stoker
yeah,
wrote this, it's all diary entries and letters.
mm,
So, but yeah, I thought the '92 film really, really captured the essence of Stoker's myth. So it
mm.
will always be my favorite Dracula story.
So it's kind of because the film, the '92 film, Gary Oldman, when he's in the castle, he meets
Hmm.
Harker for the first time. He's that very old, decrepit, like kind of.
Hmm.
You can see that he's pretty much death
Hmm.
personified. And yet, when he gets to
Yes.
London, he meets Mina. He becomes this charming, affluent gentleman, and it's that
Hmm.
kind of um, juxtaposition between the characters. That's the thing that gets us, isn't it? The fact
Hmm.
that even those readers and viewers, we know that the smooth, smarmy guy in the tuxedo wants to kill you and suck your
Hmm.
blood. You're like, yeah, but it's all right.
But
Yeah.
back then, when Stoker wrote Dracula, that figure was a fine, upstanding man. Now,
Hmm.
nowadays, we look back and people who are too slick and too perfect and too well dressed, we distrust them. We have this feeling that they're the devil or they're out to
Yeah.
tempt us or trick us. But in Stoker's day, and that's what made Dracula so powerful then,
Mm.
was he was taking someone who we're if we saw them in the street, we would look up to them, we
Yeah. We
would
trust him.
respect them,
Good
trust
shout.
them,
Good shout.
and he's making them untrustworthy. And
Mm.
that's one of the many brilliant strokes in Stoker's novel.
Right. Enough, Stalker. Enough, Keanu Reeves. I've managed to talk about that movie without doing my god awful Keanu Reeves impression, trying to do an English voice.
Yeah,
But,
that was not his wheelhouse. They should have got Johnny
yeah,
Depp.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Could see
Johnny
that.
Depp was actually who the director wanted for the role,
Yeah.
but the studio at the time said that he wasn't a big enough name.
So this was 21 Jump Street time, wasn't it?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And
So
he'd just
back when he was just this.
been killed in Nightmare on Elm Street back in the
Hmm.
80s.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just think
Oh.
of how different things could have been if if it was Johnny Depp rather than Keanu Reeves. And I adore Keanu Reeves. He's such a wonderful human being. He does so many
Mm.
great things, but he really wasn't right for Jonathan Harker.
Well, we get to see, I suppose, Depp's version in Sleepy Hollow, don't we? So
Exactly. Yeah.
we kind of get like that kind of Harker fish
Hmm.
out of water character
Hmm.
in that movie. So I
Yes.
suppose it works out. Um, how is yours different? How is your reign of Dracula different? Before we answer that question, should we take a look at the trailer video that you've got?
Why not? I think that's a perfect setup.
It's like I've done this before.
Right.
Wow, that is very impressive. I'm not going to lie. That
Thank
is
you.
very good. Um, Before we get to the visuals, I'm going to take a sidestep for a second.
Okay.
Not the music choice I expected.
Yeah, so So the music was composed by Les Lyndon Garner. Les is
Mhm.
actually my artist for Reign of Dracula. So this
Okay, cool.
guy is so ridiculously talented. I'm jealous. Kind of hate him a little bit. Uh, love you, Les. So yeah, he
Hey,
composed this music originally for Reign of Dracula, and I'm very glad that he did that. Because speaking of the 92 film, one of the things that really stood out to me was the score.
mm,
That score perfectly just underscored that film.
mhm,
And so when I did my first book, Cult of Dracula, I had a gentleman, he composed a metal version of House of the Rising Sun,
mm,
which we used as the trailer. So music has always been a big inspiration for me. When I write, I have 3 or 4 songs that I think thematically fit what I'm writing, and I just play them
mhm,
over and over and over again on loop. It helps put me in the mind frame to write. So yeah,
mhm.
that music, it's definitely not what you expect from a Dracula story, but this is also a Dracula story that you shouldn't expect.
Okay.
Because while I do remain true to Stoker's intent and his themes, I take a radically different approach to the character. The one thing I knew I didn't want to do when I set out to write the very first page of Cult of Dracula, which was the first volume of this saga, I knew I did not want to tell another story set in Victorian England about a pasty white guy coming and buying up all the real estate. That
It's like
story, it's been done so many times
that,
and so well. I can't add anything to that. Nobody needs my take on that story.
it's
You know,
funny. It's funny. I think when I can see Warner Brother exec saying, right, guys, we're going to do a Batman film. What should we do? And someone goes, should we see his parents get shot?
Ooh, you're like, of course. What are we
No,
gonna do with
not
that? I don't
again.
know.
No. Oh, right. So yours would take the step back from Victorian age.
Yeah.
I saw,
So
and yeah, I saw a little bit of different influences in there. Not just
definitely.
yeah,
So this is Reign of Dracula is the third part of a 3-volume Dracula saga. It
yeah.
started with Cult of Dracula. And Cult of Dracula, I took Stoker's myth and I reimagined it inside of a Manson family inspired cult. And what we found
Cool.
out in Cult of Dracula was there's this cult called the Ordo Dracul, and they are sworn to this ancient blood goddess. And as the story develops, we find out that that blood goddess is called Dracula. In
Ooh,
this world, Dracula is a title. It's not a name. It's a
okay.
title like queen or
Mhm.
princess or empress. It's passed down throughout from generation to generation to generation across this bloodline. And the reason I chose to do that, because the very first reaction people always have is, well, why did you make Dracula a woman? Just because I wanted to. No, that's not the answer. So knowing that I didn't want to simply retell Stoker's myth, I decided to broaden my concept of who Dracula could be. I didn't want to present the just pure Western concept of the vampire because vampires don't belong exclusively to Western cultures. Vampires exist in every culture throughout human history, at least the ones we know of, the ones that we have documentation, recorded history. So I started researching and I found out that our Western culture is one of the very few in human history that has male vampires. In most mythologies and most cultures, vampires are women. It dates back to the myth of the succubus. That's where the concept of a vampire comes from. So I started thinking to myself, what if all of these dark cast women that we've told scary stories about and written creepy nursery rhymes to get our children to listen and go to bed without a fuss? What if all of those figures, from Medusa to Kali to La Llorona to the deer woman from Cherokee mythology,
Yeah.
Baba Yaga, what if all of these figures were Dracula, but interpreted differently by the people and the cultures that observed her? And so that opened up a whole new world of story possibilities to where I could bring Stoker's themes and his intentions and package it in a way that people aren't going to expect. So,
Sorry, you just said something that made me think a little bit. I've just written one word down here on my pad as you were talking.
mm,
Is it? It's the word religion. Isn't that
mhm,
how religion works in the world?
pretty
One
much.
one set of ideas viewed through different
Yep.
nations, descendancies, and
hmm
therefore how I interpret religion is different than how you may do, how
hmm
Hindus and Buddhists and all everyone else,
hmm
So are you saying that the Dracula is a religion?
Yes, in this world, absolutely. And I'm glad you caught that and brought it up because that's a theme that I play with a lot.
Mhm.
I toy with the concept of religion and how similar it is. Like in Rise of Dracula, and definitely in Reign of Dracula. In Reign of Dracula, Mina Murray and Lucy Westerna are half sisters, and so the story really follows them. By the time we get to Reign of Dracula, Lucy is traversing the 9 circles of hell, while
Mhm.
Mina is working her way through the 7 circles of heaven. So it's a heaven and hell type version, yin and
Okay.
yang. And as Mina and Lucy are kind of tumbling through this abyss, for lack of a better term, uh, they're exposed to different gods. Like one moment it's Apollo streaming through, and then it changes, and then it changes, but it's the same figure with different faces.
Right. Right.
And that's a theme I like to toy with when it comes to religion, because people like to focus on what makes our religions different. I choose to focus on what makes them the same.
Fair
And
shout.
that's a message I wanted to get out, which is why even when I take the origin of Dracula in my world, we go all the way back to the Garden of Eden with Lilith. But I don't give you the Judeo-Christian version of Lilith. I give you the Islamic version of Lilith, because that story is way more interesting than what you're going to find in the Apocrypha. And so yeah, we tie it back to as you said, Dracula. It's a religion. Is she a goddess? Do goddesses and gods exist? Are they these perfect beings that have plans that shape the world? I don't know. We'll find out when we read the book.
Fair point. Fair point indeed. Um, so you're in this for the long haul. This is
Mhm,
the third book of your trilogy.
mhm.
Um, I don't know if I can ask this question without getting into spoiler
Of course.
territory. Is this the final volume, or is there the
Originally, this was in.
resurrection of Dracula?
I mean, you can't have a vampire if she doesn't come back from the dead.
Yeah,
Um,
or
so
the
in
undead.
the beginning, boy, that sounded very religious, didn't it? In the beginning, it
In the
this
beginning of time.
in the beginning, Rich created Dracula. Oh boy, that's probably blasphemous for me to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
Uh,
well. Um,
copyright YouTube. He didn't really say it. It was a joke. Get
there we
associated.
go.
There you go.
So initially, yes, Reign of Dracula was to be the third and final chapter in the saga, and I was going to move on and do something else.
Oh, that's fine.
As I've been writing it, and as audiences have picked it up, I've discovered that there's a lot more stories that I can tell in this world. So while this may be the final chapter of this particular Dracula story, there's an entire world of Dracula that we can explore. And I've unknowingly, in my book Rise of Dracula, which was volume 2 of the saga, I introduced Victor Frankenstein. And initially, it was just going to be a little Easter egg. It's a guy, a scientist working in a lab, and his name was Victor. And there's like this creature that he's working. It was just going to be a little one off.
Yeah.
But the character wouldn't leave me alone. He's kept in my head. I've got a story to tell. I've got a story to tell. So I sat down and I started writing a book called Prometheus in Chains, which is a take on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein set in the post World War II atomic age, where Victor and Elizabeth were 2 of the scientists who fled Nazi Germany in 1939. True story. came to the U.S., Operation Paperclip, and worked on the Manhattan Project. And so while working on that, Elizabeth is exposed to radiation, she develops cancer, and she passes away. So her death is what sends Victor into a spiral of addiction, depression, and an obsession with bringing her back to life. So we look at Victor Frankenstein, rather than his arrogance driving him, it's his grief, which I think gave him a very human quality. So that, in writing Prometheus in Chains, that really gave birth to the concept of the world of Dracula. I'm taking these classic horror figures, Victor Frankenstein, Dracula, Dorian Gray.
I love Dorian Gray.
Yes, that's my next book, actually. So I'm very excited to be writing that. But they all tie back to Dracula. I remember reading DC's Convergence several years ago.
Oh,
and
why do you have to say stuff like that to me? It's like,
because
that was terrible.
There's a reason. There's a reason. I hated Convergence, but I loved the Zero issue. The Zero issue is the only story worth reading. It's super Brainiac. He's talking and he's giving this thing about Superman, and it all comes down to this final 2-page spread. And there's this massive Galactus-style Brainiac and a teeny tiny little Superman floating right here. And Brainiac says, across time, across universes, across everything, it always comes down to you, Superman. And so that always stuck with me. And so in my comic books, just like Stephen King has his Dark Tower, everything ties into the Dark Tower. Everything in my world, in my books, always revolves around Dracula. So in Prometheus in Chains, we're going to meet a character in issue 6. Her name is Lily. And she ties, yes, you got it. She ties my Prometheus in Chains into the world of Dracula, the way Rise of Dracula tied Prometheus in Chains like that, or So
I mean, as you said, the cult of Dracula. If it's like it's not just one person, it's a title. Then that title can live through time.
Exactly.
It's a different take on the word undead, because when you say vampires and undead, you think automatically it's the same corpse that's been dragged around since God knows when, right? But it's actually that person can die, that can be destroyed, that can be whatever, but it's the title that's the ever living.
Right. Yeah? It lives on. It's just like the myth of the vampire, just like religion. When I'm dead and gone and turned to dust, you can relate it on a personal level. When I'm gone, my legacy is going to live on through these books. So just because I'm no longer here doesn't mean that I'm no longer here. Same thing with Dracula. Like you said, it passes down from culture to culture, time to time. And there's literally no end to the storytelling possibilities when you think of Dracula as a timeless figure that moves through cultures. And what better way to do that than to allow each culture to have their own interpretation of Dracula?
Perfect. What a great place to take a quick break. Right, time for a break for one of our other ads for our other shows. We've mentioned them a couple of times now, so I suppose we have to run the where is it? Where is my advert for that? Where is it? Cruisers. There it is. All right. Check it out. It's the Definitive Crusade.
I want to watch that podcast now. That looked awesome.
The Definitive Crusade for all you DC fans out there drops next week with another roundup of this week's comic books. Don't forget to check out the episode a couple of weeks ago where we played DC Jeopardy. I was your host. Enjoy that for all the fun in the world. There you go. Right, let's take a look at the Kickstarter. Where are we at? So the Kickstarter's got, at time of recording, you've got 3 weeks left to go. It is in pounds. Let's change that around. So you're currently on $2,476 of a 5,000 goal. So practically you're halfway there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about that. This is the first time I've ever done a Kickstarter, so I'm learning so much about the platform, and so I'm very, very excited to see that we're 50% of the way there. I think we're definitely going to meet our goal. I'd love to exceed it so we can get some stretch goals going, but we're going to see how it goes.
Cool. Excellent. Let's have a look at some of the tiers then. Love this. Reign of Dracula Part 1, $8, PDF. Rich, I say this all the time when I talk Kickstarters. It is such a good call to do a PDF. Personally, I like paper copy. I like real deal comics, but I don't mind dropping $5, $8 for a comic book. I do mind having to pay $25 in shipping, right?
Right.
So PDF for international has to be the way to go.
Yeah. What I wanted to do, Jerry Carita at Thorny Comics, he really had to twist my arm to get me to commit to doing a Kickstarter, because I didn't really understand the platform and I didn't really want to do it. But when I decided that I would do it, I told Jerry, I said, I'll do it on 2 conditions. One, there has to be a reason for it. We've got to do something unique. We've got to give people a reason to buy it from us on Kickstarter rather than waiting until spring of 2024 to pick it up in their local comic book store, because this will release in comic book stores. And the second thing that I absolutely insisted upon is that the Kickstarter had to be affordable and accessible to as many people as possible. So that's why, we have various tiers, and I don't think I've seen very many Kickstarters that have a tier that starts below $10. We keep it, we give you a lot of bang for your buck. And what makes this unique, to meet my first qualification, is our Kickstarter books are going to be 48-page jumbo-sized issues that combine issues 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. They will also be in black and white with all unique cover art and other bonus content in the books. And those versions will never be reproduced anywhere again. You can only get them through Kickstarter. Then when they come out in comic book stores starting in the spring of 2024, you'll be able to pick them up, but they will be in full color and they will be single 24-page issues, and they won't have that bonus content. So that's why you should run back the Kickstarter rather than waiting for it in the comic book store. But definitely go back and buy it from the comic book store so I can continue making comics. So, it's very exclusive, or exclusivity of this work. You can get something that will be very limited in print run that you won't be able to get anywhere else. And we also, it's very affordable. We give you a lot for your money. You're getting 48 pages of comics, where most of the time it's 24. We also give you, I think any tier that you back, you can get PDFs of all 6 issues of my current book, Prometheus and Chains. We do have a catch-up tier to where you can get either in PDF or in hard copy. You can get the Cult of Dracula and Rise of Dracula along with Reign of Dracula. And so, yeah, there's really a lot. There's a lot of reasons for you to come back this Kickstarter other than give me money. I'm giving you something in return for it that I'm very proud of. And, I think it's really resonating with my supporters.
Excellent. So in the middle page there, we've got the triple gate cover. There you go, wraparound cover. That looks bomb. I like that. And there's that's what we were saying about the different cultures and the different Draculas over time.
Yeah, these are Dracula's brides. I love the brides. You know, they're present in every rendition of Dracula, but a lot of times they don't really get a lot of story. They're all just three women who Dracula keeps around. We don't really get into who they are. But in my books, they're Akasha, Akumu, and Signa. One Akasha is an Egyptian priestess dedicated to the god of the dead.
Mhm.
Signa was a Viking seer, a skald, and Akumu was a witch in the court of a shogun, and Dracula handpicked them to be her heralds. So you get a lot of depth to those characters, and so yeah, you'll get a good story from them.
Love this cover.
That's Bella Racklin, wonderful, wonderful artist, a huge, huge following on Instagram. Follow her; it's at Bella Racklin. This is the first time I've ever worked with Bella. I love her use of color, and she really captures the essence of Lucy.
Mm.
This is Lucy in from the book, and she really, really, really captured her.
Mhm.
Just beautiful, and the colors they absolutely leap out at you.
She's doll-like.
Hmm. Yeah, which that's also another theme in the book about vampires manipulate, vampires pull the
Okay.
strings, and
Yeah.
sometimes they're invisible strings.
Cool. Almost like a Frankenstein's bride type of thing. Very
Yeah, yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Love this one as well. This is
Ryan
the
Silverbacks. Yeah, that's Brian
yeah.
Silverbacks. He's a Ringo Award nominee, cover artist. He's started doing these watercolors. They make me think a lot of David Mack and Peach Momoko. And I think this can really be a signature style for Brian
Great,
and really
great.
propel his career forward. This is out of all of them, this is my favorite cover. I just adore it. I
I love
actually
the
bought the original art from him.
I like the reds coming down like off a chin to imply
Uh-huh.
the whole vampire element. Really
Yep.
like that. Really like that.
Yep. This is
Oh,
Jonathan McDaniel. He's an artist out of Memphis, Tennessee. And this is actually Lily, who was referencing
uh-huh.
earlier. We meet her in Prometheus #6, and you know that she's a good guy because she's carrying two people's severed heads in her hands. So we
Oh
know
yeah.
she's the hero of the story.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Heroes carry dead heads. Yes, but yeah,
Exactly.
true,
Yeah.
yeah.
Love that art. This is Sean Koss, the next cover here. This
Mhm.
is the only cover that wasn't specifically produced for Reign of Dracula. Sean was kind enough to allow us to license one of his pieces of art to use as the cover. I fell in love with this the first time I saw it at New York Comic Con, and Sean and I developed a bit of a friendship because this absolutely just captures the essence um, of the story in Reign of
Mm,
Dracula. There's this massive death looming over us all, and we're just so tiny and
mm.
so ill-defined. Um,
Where's the other one this one? I
oh yeah,
really
Rob
like this one.
Rettiano.
Yeah, this one. When I think of vampires, it's like the kind of I get the sultry, sexy type, whether it be the suave gentleman or the curvy woman and stuff. But
Hmm.
there's also the other side of that is when they're captured or when they're you know the
Hmm.
you know the they have to show their true selves to some
Hmm.
extent.
Yeah.
I love this aspect here. The word sinner there implies obviously that they're anti-religion, although to be fair, as we've discussed, Dracula's its own religion whatsoever.
Hmm.
So that's an interesting take
So
when you
who did she
consider the
sin
context.
against? That's a
Well,
great question.
yeah. Who did she sin against?
Maybe we'll answer that question.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting indeed.
Yeah,
Um. Absolutely. See, as soon as you say Dracula, I'm sold. I'm already in. I'm already in when people say Dracula. Yep, sign me up for some of that. Love me some Dracula. Um,
absolutely.
yeah. How did you meet the artists to get them involved in this
um,
torrid
so
tale of religion and blood?
so Les, who is my interior artist, I met him he did a cover, retailer exclusive cover for Cult of Dracula.
Right.
And so he and I became friends. and we've worked together on many covers over the last 3 years. And I really wanted to work with him more. So when it came time to do Reign of Dracula, it was a completely different tone than the previous two books. So I wanted a completely different look. So I reached out to Les. Les and I, we get along very well. We vibe. We both have a love of Bernie Wrightson. And so, we worked together. I decided to bring him in. The cover artists, I've had the privilege to meet a lot of wonderful artists over the last 3 years, first 3 years of my career. A lot of them I've met at conventions, New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, things like that, where I've been very fortunate enough to be invited guests at those conventions. And then others, I met them because they did covers for my previous books. So one thing I've learned is that the comic book community, while it is very large, it is also very small, and everyone knows everyone. And you can within 2 or 3 degrees of separation, you can connect to just about anyone you can imagine out there.
Kevin Bacon.
Exactly, yeah.
You're 6 steps away from Kevin Bacon, and you get
right.
Yeah, that's true. You also have a website.
I do.
You
Worldofdracula.com.
There you go. Let's have a look at that. Which one is there? It is. I can't find where I am now. There we go. Oh, who is that handsome chap there?
That's me benefiting from a great photographer with awesome lighting.
Hashtag Photoshop. No, I didn't say that. Not at all.
So just like Coppola, she did it all in the lens, and great lighting. I'll tell you that.
Eyes really that blue. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. That's been my calling card. I was an actor for many years, working film and theater, and my eyes got me more auditions than anything else.
I'm going to quickly look you up then. Actor. Have I seen you in anything?
Probably nothing that would make me famous. A lot of day player work. Things like Revenge on ABC. The thing you'll probably recognize me the most is a Swap Shop on Netflix. I was playing myself. I was the comic book buyer on Swap Shop. The first season was called Dash for Cash, and I forgot what the second season was called, but yeah, that was a fun experience.
I don't know if we have it over, because UK Netflix is different to America. We only get so many shows. I mean, they've only just got around to showing the Justice League cartoon this last 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow. So examples of some of the art that we can expect. I've loved some of these.
Yeah. That's Maria Key that did that one. Also Maria. Carla Cohen did the next 2 that are coming up.
Samurai Girl.
Oh yeah, that's a version of Akumu. And this one is Ryan Kincaid, brilliant artist. Love working with him. And I forget who did that cover. Maybe Chris Campana. And then that one is Kayla Valero. The next 2 are actually Kayla. Love working with her.
That's very reminiscent of the Vlad the Impaler legend.
Yeah, I wanted that because I wanted to give a nod to Stoker's Dracula. Yeah. That one I think was also Kayla. That one I know is Kayla.
That one's lovely. Cool.
And that's another Maria Key right there. I think that one's Maria. Tiffany Groves did this one. She's actually from the UK. I think she lives in London. Right. Absolutely. I love this one because if you pay close attention, you see some horns on Lucy and she's bloody. Normally when you see this picture, she looks in the mirror and she sees the monster in the mirror and she's the beauty. But in this one, the monster is real and the beauty is the illusion. So
is this a vampire then?
It is. That's Lucy. That's Lucy. She becomes a vampire.
See, you almost had me. Then you had to do something daft like, sure, you can't see vampires in mirrors. That's one of the rules.
That's
one of the rules.
Oh yeah, but we can break the rules. As Picasso said,
Oh,
once you know the rules, you can break them.
fine, fine. Bring Twilight back.
My vampires don't sparkle, thankfully.
Yeah, but you can see the damn things in the mirror. Oh my
Yep.
god.
Like I said, vampire myths from around the world.
Fair enough.
Mirrors, that is a purely Western concept of the vampire.
I will let you off with that one. I'll let you off on that one. All right. Give us your 60-second pitch of why people should be checking out the Kickstarter so that you can get their hands on the book.
Absolutely. So Reign of Dracula is the conclusion of my 3-volume Dracula saga. It's also the birth of my World of Dracula shared horror universe. I like to say that if Cult of Dracula were a Tobe Hooper Southern Gothic Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, Rise of Dracula is a John Carpenter near future dystopia, and Reign of Dracula is a full-on George Miller Mad Max the world is screwed apocalypse. So if you want to see how the world ends, in many, many different cultures all at once, read Reign of Dracula.
There you go. What can you say? All right. To keep up to date with Rich and Dracula, you can check them out on Facebook, World of Dracula. There it is. You saw the link earlier. Just head over to worldofdracula.com for the website to get further updates and so on. You can sink your teeth into all that information.
Nice.
To get involved in the project, check it out. That's the link. Yes, I know Kickstarter links are long, but come on. You know how it works. Go to Kickstarter.com, and then type in Reign of Dracula. And guess what happens?
It pops up.
It's like sparkles in Twilight. They're just there for everyone to see.
But please go back to Kickstarter. Give me money so I can keep doing this.
There you go. What do you know? What I love the most? The fact that you are so passionate about this. And it's trying to take on board a character like Dracula and do something new and different. Especially in today's world of diversity, I think is a massive, massive, step forwards. We're not dealing with just the same old trope day in, day out. We're looking to add something and give these tales of which I love from my neck of the woods.
We're getting all the puns in there today.
What I say, yeah. And taking it down different veins and avenues. There's another one. So that it can be represented across the world in different cultures. I think that's absolutely well done.
Yep.
You've done a fantastic job, my friend.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Job. You are more than welcome. Say that again in a Tennessee drawl.
A little bit.
Thank you very much.
Little Elvis. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, that's it for another show. Thanks to Rich for spending his time on a very, very busy Kickstarter. So, Rich, I really do appreciate you spending the time. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows. You saw it earlier, the Definitive Crusade for all you DC fans. For your Marvel heads, check out the No Price podcast, which talks about Disney Plus, MCU, which include the Marvel movie, and of course some Marvel comics. And if you like your books of a certain vintage, check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show. If you go back a few episodes, Tomb of Dracula was on there, those old Marvel black and whites. So if vamps are your thing, go check that out. There you go. Rich, I do really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Excellent. All right. I have been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. And as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.